The morning everything changed, Natalie Brooks stepped through the grand entrance of Azure Bay Resort. Her tablet clutched against her chest like a shield. The morning sun filtered through floor-tizzling windows, casting geometric patterns across the polished limestone floors. This was it. The biggest project of her career. 5 months of sleepless nights, countless revisions, and more coffee than any human should consume had led to this moment. The resort was her masterpiece. Every corner, every texture, every carefully chosen shade of blue and cream had been selected to create an atmosphere of coastal elegance. She had transformed the dated 1980s beach resort into a modern sanctuary that honored its oceanfront location while embracing contemporary luxury. Miss Brooks, welcome back, the resort manager. A friendly woman named Patricia greeted her with a warm smile. Everything is ready for your final walkthrough. Mr. Reed called this morning and said he might stop by later. Natalie's heart did a little flip at the mention of Jameson Reed, though she quickly suppressed it. She had seen his photo in business magazines, of course. The man was practically a legend in the hospitality industry. At only 35, he had built an empire of boutique resorts that redefined luxury travel. But she had never actually met him in person. All their communications had gone through his representatives. Perfect, Natalie replied, smoothing down her navy blazer. I want to check the wellness center first. The new steam rooms were just completed yesterday. She made her way through the resort, nodding approvingly at the changes. The lobby felt open and inviting, with natural materials and soft lighting that made guests feel instantly at ease. Local artwork adorned the walls, giving the space a sense of place and authenticity. The wellness center was her favorite part of the project. Located on the lower level, with windows overlooking the ocean, it featured a state-of-the-art fitness facility, treatment rooms, and a thermal suite with various heat experiences. The steam rooms were the crown jewel, built with special Himalayan salt walls that released minerals into the air. Trapped in the heat, Natalie pushed open the heavy glass door to the main steam room, wanting to experience the space one final time before the official opening. The temperature was perfect, hovering around 115 degrees. The salt walls glowed with backlighting, creating an ethereal amber atmosphere. She sat on the smooth teak bench, breathing in the mineral-rich air. This was what she loved about design, creating spaces that made people feel something. This room was meant to be a sanctuary, a place to release stress and find peace. She was so lost in the sensory experience that she barely noticed the soft click of the door mechanism. It was only when she tried to leave 5 minutes later that she realized something was wrong. The door would not budge. Hello? Natalie called out, pressing the emergency call button mounted on the wall. Nothing happened. She tried the door again, throwing her weight against it. Still nothing. Her phone was in her bag in the locker room. Of course, great, she muttered, feeling the first prickle of real concern. The temperature was safe for short periods, but she was wearing a full business suit. Already her blazer felt like a wool blanket in summer. Then she heard it. A deep voice, muffled, but clearly frustrated, coming from the adjacent prep room. This is ridiculous. The door is completely stuck. Natalie moved closer to the wall, separating the two spaces. Hello, are you stuck too? There was a pause. Yeah. Are you in the steam room? Yes. The door locked somehow. Do you have a phone? Left it in my locker. You? Same. Another pause. Then, surprisingly, a low chuckle. Well, this is not how I expected my Tuesday to go. I'm Jameson, by the way. Natalie froze. Jameson, as in Jameson Reed. The owner of this entire resort? I'm Natalie, she managed, her voice slightly strangled. Natalie Brooks, the interior designer. No way. His voice brightened considerably. The Natalie Brooks who turned my outdated beach resort into something out of a design magazine? Despite the situation, Natalie felt herself smile. That would be me. And apparently I designed a space that locks people inside. Hey, the design is brilliant. It's the new electronic lock system that my operations team installed without testing properly. That's the problem. He paused. How hot is it in there? Natalie glanced at the thermometer. About 115. How about you? Prep room is cooler, maybe 85, but I'm in a full suit because I came from a board meeting. I'm in a suit too. Blazer, silk blouse, wool skirt, the whole professional package. We're both overdressed for a steam room experience. Natalie laughed, surprising herself. Here she was, trapped in a steam room she had designed, talking through a wall to the billionaire client she had never met. It was absurd. And somehow, despite the rising temperature and her growing discomfort, she found herself relaxing, getting to know each other so. Natalie Brooks. Jameson's voice came through the wall. Closer now, as if he had sat down right on the other side. Tell me how you got into interior design. We really doing this? Getting to know you conversation while trapped in a wellness center? I can think of worse ways to pass the time. Besides, I've been wanting to meet the person who understood my vision better than I did myself. Natalie removed her blazer, draping it over the bench. Her silk blouse was already damp with perspiration. My mom was an architect. She used to take me to job sites when I was a kid. I loved watching spaces transform, seeing how the right design could completely change how people felt in a room. That's exactly what you did here. I wanted this resort to feel like home, but elevated. Comfortable luxury, not stuffy pretension. That's what I picked up from the initial brief. And from researching your other properties, you have a very consistent philosophy, which is, Natalie thought for a moment, that luxury should be accessible, not intimidating. That beautiful spaces should make people feel welcomed, not excluded. There was a long silence. When Jameson spoke again, his voice was softer. That's it exactly. Most people in this industry don't get it. They think more expensive means better, but that's not what creates meaningful experiences. I know. I've worked with clients who wanted gold everything, marble everywhere, and no personality. Those projects pay well, but they don't feed the soul. Feed the soul, Jameson repeated. I like that. Is that what drives you? Natalie leaned her head back against the warm salt wall, feeling strangely comfortable opening up to this man she could not see. Maybe it was the heat making her lightheaded. Or maybe it was the anonymity of the wall between them. I want to create spaces that matter, she said honestly. Not just pretty rooms, but places where people make memories, where they feel safe enough to be themselves, where they might even fall in love. Have you ever fallen in love in a space you designed? The question caught her off guard. No, I'm usually too busy working to have much of a personal life. I know that feeling. Jameson's voice held a note of recognition. Building this company has been my entire focus for the past 10 years. Every relationship I've had has fallen apart because I was always working. Why do we do this to ourselves? Natalie wondered aloud. Pour everything into our careers and forget to actually live. Because we're good at it? Because it's easier than risking our hearts? Natalie felt a strange tightness in her chest, and it was not from the heat. Maybe. Or maybe we just have not found the right person who understands that our work is part of who we are, not separate from it. That's a nice thought. The rescue and first glance, they talked for another 20 minutes. Their conversation flowing easily from design philosophy to childhood memories to favorite books. Natalie found herself laughing more than she had in months. Despite the sweat dripping down her back and the uncomfortable cling of her clothes, finally, they heard voices and footsteps outside. Someone's in there. Patricia's concerned voice called out. Yes. 2 people, actually, Natalie shouted back. The doors are locked. We're working on it now. The whole system crashed. Give us just a few more minutes. Those few minutes felt like an eternity. Natalie was starting to feel genuinely dizzy from the heat. She had removed her blouse, leaving just her camisole, and kicked off her shoes. Her professional appearance was completely destroyed. When the door finally opened and cool air rushed in, she practically stumbled into the prep room. Patricia steadied her, wrapping a plush resort robe around her shoulders. Are you okay? Let me get you some water. I'm fine, Natalie managed, though her legs felt shaky. Just need to cool down. That's when she saw him. Jameson Reed stood a few feet away, his own jacket discarded, his white dress shirt unbuttoned at the collar and damped with sweat. His dark hair was disheveled, and there was genuine concern in his deep brown eyes. He was even more handsome than his photos suggested. But it was not just his looks that made her heart race. It was the way he was looking at her, like she was the most important person in the room. "Natalie," he said, moving toward her quickly. "You look pale." "Sit down." He guided her to a bench, his hand warm and steady on her elbow. Up close, she could see the laugh lines around his eyes, the small scar on his chin, the genuine kindness in his expression. "I'm okay," she said, accepting the water bottle Patricia handed her. "Just overheated." "That's one way to meet your designer," Jameson said with a slight smile. "Lock her in a steam room until she's practically delirious." "Some first impression," Natalie agreed, trying to finger-comb her damp hair into some semblance of order. "Actually," Jameson said, sitting beside her but maintaining a respectful distance, "I think this might be the best first meeting I have ever had." Natalie looked at him in surprise. "Really? I look like I went swimming in my business clothes. You look real? Not trying to impress me or pitch me something, just you having an honest conversation through a wall." And Natalie felt that same connection they had established through their conversation, now intensified by actually seeing each other. "I enjoyed talking to you," she admitted. "I enjoyed it too." Jameson paused, seeming to make a decision. "Look, I know this is unconventional, and you probably want to go home and take a proper shower, but would you have dinner with me tonight? I'd love to continue our conversation without a wall between us." Natalie knew she should be professional. Maintain boundaries. Keep things strictly business. But something about this man, about the way they had connected, made her want to take a chance. "Dinner sounds perfect," she heard herself say. "But I'm picking the restaurant. I've learned all the best local spots during this project." Jameson's smile was brilliant. "Deal? 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock. As Natalie gathered her things and headed to the locker room to change, she caught her reflection in a mirror. Her hair was a mess. Her makeup had melted off, and she was wrapped in a resort bathrobe. She looked nothing like the polished professional who had walked in that morning, but she was smiling wider than she had in years. Sometimes, she thought, the best things happen when your carefully laid plans completely fall. Apart in Evening of Revelations, Natalie changed her outfit 3 times before settling on a flowing emerald dress that struck the balance between casual and elegant. She had suggested the Copper Dock, a seafood restaurant tucked away on a quiet pier, known more to locals than tourists. The kind of place where you could actually hear your dinner companion speak without shouting over loud music or clinking glasses. Jameson was already waiting when she arrived, leaning against the weathered wooden railing and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. He had changed into dark jeans and a crisp blue button-down shirt, the sleeves rolled up to his forearms. Without the formal business attire, he looked younger, more relaxed. "Found it," Natalie said as she approached. He turned, and his face lit up when he saw her. "This place is incredible. How did you discover it?" "I spent 3 weeks here during the initial design phase. I ate at every restaurant within a 5-mile radius. This one became my favorite. The owner, Grace, sources everything locally. The fish comes in fresh every morning." They were seated at a corner table with a view of the water. The evening breeze carried the scent of salt and jasmine from the planters scattered around the deck. As the waiter brought them menus and water, Natalie felt her nervousness begin to ease. "So," Jameson said, studying her across the candlelit table, "now that we can actually see each other, what do you think? Does the real me live up to the voice through the wall?" Natalie pretended to consider this seriously. The voice was pretty great, but I have to admit, the visual component is not bad either. He laughed, a genuine sound that made his eyes crinkle. "I was thinking the same thing about you. Though I have to say, you looked pretty amazing, even drenched in sweat and wrapped in a bathrobe. Now I know you were lying." "I am not. There was something about seeing you so completely yourself, without any pretense. It was refreshing." The waiter returned to take their order. They both chose the grilled local grouper with roasted vegetables, and Jameson selected a crisp white wine that the waiter assured them would pair perfectly as they waited for their food. The conversation flowed as easily as it had through the steam room wall. Natalie told him about her journey from a small design firm to starting her own company 3 years ago. The struggles of building a client base, the fear of failure, the triumph of each successful project. "Azure Bay is my biggest commission yet," she admitted. "When your team reached out, I almost did not believe it was real. I must have rewritten my proposal 20 times. Your proposal was perfect. It showed me you understood not just what I wanted, but why I wanted it." Jameson swirled his wine thoughtfully. "I inherited my first resort from my uncle when I was 25. It was this old beachfront property that had not been updated since the 1970s. Everyone told me to tear it down and build something modern, but you did not. No, I renovated it. Kept all the original character, but made it functional for today. That property taught me that luxury does not mean erasing history. It means honoring it while moving forward." Natalie leaned forward, captivated. "That is exactly the philosophy I brought to Azure Bay. The bones of that building were so good, it just needed someone to see its potential. It did more than see its potential. You brought it to life." Their food arrived, and they ate slowly, continuing to talk between bites. Jameson told her about growing up in Colorado, about summers spent at his uncle's resort, learning the business from the ground up, about his father, a corporate lawyer, who had wanted him to follow a more traditional path. "He still does not quite understand what I do," Jameson said with a rueful smile. "To him, hospitality is just selling hotel rooms. He does not see it as creating experiences or building community." "My dad is the same way about design," Natalie confided. "He is an engineer. Everything is about function and efficiency. He looked at my portfolio once and asked why anyone would pay money to make a room look pretty when cheap furniture does the same job. Do you two get along?" "We do now. It took years of proving myself, showing him that what I do matters. That beautiful spaces improve people's quality of life." She paused. "Though I think part of him still wishes I had become an engineer like him." Jameson reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. "Their loss is the world's gain. You have a real gift, Natalie." The touch sent a spark through her body, and from the way his eyes darkened, she knew he felt it too. This was moving fast, maybe too fast. It felt right in a way nothing else had in years. Crossing professional lines after dinner, they walked along the beach, both of them carrying their shoes, as the cool sand shifted beneath their feet. The moon had risen, casting a silver path across the water. "I have to ask you something," Natalie said, gathering her courage. "This dinner, this walk, what are we doing here?" Jameson stopped walking and turned to face her. "Honestly, I am not entirely sure. This morning I woke up planning to do a quick check on the resort and fly back to Chicago for meetings. Then I got trapped in a prep room with a woman I could not see, and I felt more connected to her in an hour than I have to anyone in years." "I felt it too," Natalie admitted. "But Jameson, I work for you. This project is not even finished yet. Getting involved would be complicated." "I know. Believe me, I have been telling myself all the same things." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I have always kept my personal life completely separate from business. Always. But then I met you, and suddenly all my rules seem less important. What happens when the project ends? When I move on to my next commission and you are building your next resort? What happens if we do not take this chance and spend the rest of our lives wondering what if?" He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. "Natalie, I am not saying I have all the answers. I am just saying I want to find out where this goes." She should walk away. The smart professional thing would be to finish the Azure Bay project, take her payment, and move on to the next job. Getting romantically involved with a client violated every business principle she believed in. But when had she ever played it safe? "Okay," she said softly. "Let us find out." Jameson smiled, and then his hand was cupping her cheek, his thumb tracing her jawline. He gave her plenty of time to pull away, but Natalie did not want to. When his lips finally met hers, it was like coming home. The kiss was gentle at first, almost questioning. Then Natalie pressed closer, and the gentleness gave way to something deeper, more urgent. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her against him. and she threaded her fingers through his hair. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Jameson rested his forehead against hers. "So that just happened," he whispered. "Yeah," Natalie agreed, her heart racing. "That definitely just happened." They stood there for a long moment, wrapped in each other's arms with the waves crashing nearby, neither wanting to break the spell, a proposition that changes everything over the next 2 months. Natalie and Jameson navigated the delicate balance between professional collaboration and personal connection. She finished the Azure Bay project, which opened to rave reviews from travel critics and design magazines alike. Bookings flooded in, and Jameson's company saw an immediate return on investment. But it was not just the resort that was thriving. Their relationship had deepened in ways Natalie had not thought possible. Despite Jameson's demanding travel schedule and her own packed calendar of new client consultations, they made time for each other. Video calls at midnight, surprise visits when he was in town, weekends stolen away at various properties. Natalie had never been happier, which is why Jameson's phone call on a Tuesday morning caught her completely off guard. "I need to see you," he said without preamble. "Can you come to the office? I have something important to discuss." An hour later, Natalie sat in the conference room of Reed Hospitality Group, looking at architectural renderings spread across the massive table. Jameson stood at the head of the table, unusually formal in a charcoal suit. "I'm expanding," he said, "for new properties over the next 3 years. Miami, Napa Valley, Charleston, and Sedona. Each one with its own unique character, its own story to tell." Natalie studied the renderings, her designer's eye already seeing possibilities. "These are beautiful locations. You will do amazing things with them. I want you to lead the design for all 4 properties." Her head snapped up. "What?" "I want you to be the creative director for Reed Hospitality Group. Full-time position, competitive salary, complete design authority. You would work on every property we develop, bringing your vision to each space." Natalie felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. "Jameson, I have my own firm. My own clients?" "I know, and I am not asking you to give that up entirely. You could take on select outside projects if you wanted, but this would be your primary focus." He moved around the table to stand beside her. "Natalie, what we created at Azure Bay was magic. I want that magic in every property I build. And I want to build it with you. Is this about us? About our relationship?" "Yes and no." Jameson pulled out the chair next to her and sat down. "Professionally, you are the best designer I have ever worked with. That is not bias talking. That is reviews, bookings, and guest feedback. But personally, yes, I want you in my life. Not just on weekends and video calls. I want to build something with you." Natalie's mind raced. This was everything she had worked toward. Financial security, creative freedom, the chance to work on high-profile projects. But it also meant tying herself to Jameson both professionally and personally. If their relationship failed, where would that leave her? "I need time to think about this," she said carefully. "Go, of course. Take all the time you need." But she could see the disappointment in his eyes. That evening, Natalie called Carmen, her best friend since college and the only person who could talk her through this. "Let me get this straight," Carmen said after Natalie explained the situation. "The gorgeous billionaire who you are crazy about wants to hire you for the job of a lifetime, and you are hesitating. Why?" "Because what if it does not work out between us? Then I have given up my independence, and I am stuck working for my ex," Carmen countered. "What if it does work out, and you get both the career and the relationship? Natalie, you have spent your whole life playing it safe. Maybe it is time to take a real risk." Natalie stared at her phone long after Carmen hung up. Her friend was right. She had always chosen the safe path, the measured approach. Even starting her own firm had been calculated, with a backup plan in place. But falling for Jameson had not been calculated. It had been messy and unexpected and wonderful. Maybe it was time to trust that feeling instead of fighting it. The leap of faith, 3 days later. Natalie walked into Jameson's office without an appointment. His assistant started to protest, but Jameson appeared in the doorway, his face lighting up when he saw her. "I was just thinking about you. I have an answer to your offer." He gestured her into his office, closing the door behind them. The room was surprisingly personal for a billionaire's workspace, with photographs from his properties on the walls and books about architecture and design filling the shelves. "Before you give me your answer," Jameson said, "I need to say something. I have been thinking about this non-stop since we talked. If you are worried about mixing business with our relationship, we can establish clear boundaries. Separate professional meetings from personal time. Maybe even have you report to Tyler instead of directly to me. Jameson. And if you ever want to leave? If this does not work out for any reason, I will give you the best reference in the industry and help you find your next position. I will never hold this over you or use it as leverage. You have my word." "Jameson," Natalie said more firmly. He stopped pacing and looked at her. "Double quotes? Yes." The smile that spread across his face was worth every moment of uncertainty. He crossed the room in 3 strides and swept her into his arms, spinning her around like they were in a movie. "Really? You are sure?" "I am terrified," she admitted. "But I am also excited. Let us build something amazing together." They sealed the agreement with a kiss that started professional and quickly became anything but. When they finally broke apart, both flushed and breathless, Jameson pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you," he said softly. "I know it is fast and probably too soon to say it, but I do. I love your creativity, your passion, your terrible jokes about interior design puns." Natalie laughed through sudden tears. "I love you too. Even though you have terrible taste in coffee and you always steal the blankets." "When did I steal the blankets?" "That weekend in Charleston. You turned into a blanket burrito and left me freezing."
"I
will buy you your own blanket. Or you could just learn to." Share. They spent the rest of the afternoon hammering out the details of her new position, discussing timelines for the new properties, and dreaming about the possibilities. For the first time in her career, Natalie felt like she had found not just a job, but a true partnership. 6 months of growing together, the next 6 months were a whirlwind of site visits, design charrettes, and late nights spent sketching plans and revising concepts. Natalie threw herself into the Miami property first, a 1920s Art Deco building that needed extensive restoration. She spent weeks researching the period, sourcing authentic fixtures, and creating a design that honored the building's history while meeting modern luxury standards. Jameson was her constant collaborator, offering insights into guest experience and operational needs while trusting her creative vision. They learned how to work together, when to push back, and when to compromise. It was not always smooth. They had passionate disagreements about everything from color palettes to furniture layouts, but they also had moments of perfect synchronicity, when they would both have the same idea at the same time, or when one of them would solve a problem the other had been struggling with. Their personal relationship deepened too. Natalie met Jameson's family, including his skeptical father, who slowly warmed to her after seeing her work. Jameson charmed Natalie's parents at a carefully orchestrated dinner, where he won over her engineer father by discussing sustainable building practices. They traveled together for work and pleasure, exploring the cities where new properties were being developed. In Napa, they toured vineyards and tasted wines while discussing the design for the Valley property. In Charleston, they walked through historic neighborhoods, drawing inspiration from the elegant Southern architecture. It was during their trip to Sauna that Jameson proposed, the question that changed everything. They had hiked to Cathedral Rock to watch the sunset, something Jameson had insisted was essential for understanding the property's location. Natalie was exhausted from the climb, her legs burning, but the view was worth it. The red rocks glowed in the fading light, and the desert stretched out endlessly below them. "This is where I want to build," Jameson said, pointing to a relatively flat area nestled between rock formations. "A resort that feels like it grew out of the landscape, not on top of it." "It is perfect," Natalie agreed, already envisioning low-slung buildings with natural materials, floor-to-ceiling windows to capture the views, and outdoor spaces that blurred the line between inside and out. "I am glad you think so, because I am going to need your help with something else." Natalie turned to find Jameson on one knee, holding a small velvet box. Inside was a ring, a stunning emerald-cut diamond set in platinum with smaller stones along the band. "Natalie Brooks, You walked into my life on the worst and best day I have ever had. You have challenged me, inspired me, and made me want to be better at everything I do. You have turned my resorts into homes and my life into something I never knew I was missing. Will you marry me?" Natalie felt tears streaming down her face as she nodded. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. Jameson paid attention to details. They sat on that rock as the sun set completely and the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky. Natalie leaned against Jameson's chest, his arms wrapped around her, and felt a peace she had never known. "I want to get married at Azure Bay," she said suddenly. "Where this all started, in the steam room," Jameson teased. She elbowed him gently. "On the beach, with just close friends and family, something intimate and real. That sounds perfect." 3 months later, the morning of Natalie's wedding day, dawned clear and warm. She stood on the balcony of her suite at Azure Bay Resort, watching the waves roll in and thinking about how much had changed in just over a year. Carmen bustled around the room, making final adjustments to Natalie's simple ivory dress. It was a flowing design with delicate lace sleeves, elegant but not overdone. Exactly her style. "Nervous?" Carmen asked. "Not even a little bit." Natalie said honestly, "I have never been more sure of anything in my life." The ceremony was held on the beach at sunset, with 50 guests gathered in a semicircle around a simple arbor decorated with white flowers and flowing fabric. Natalie walked down the sandy aisle barefoot, carrying a bouquet of white roses and jasmine. Jameson stood waiting for her, handsome in a light gray suit with no tie. His eyes were already wet with tears when she reached him. The ceremony was brief and personal. They had written their own vows, promising to support each other's dreams, to communicate honestly even when it was hard, and to never stop growing together. "I promise to always see the potential in you," Natalie said, her voice steady despite her emotional state. "Just like you saw the potential in that old steam room that brought us together." The guests laughed, and Jameson wiped his eyes. "I promise to love you in every space we create together," Jameson said, "and to never, ever lock you in a steam room again without a working door." When the officiant pronounced them married, their kiss was met with cheers and applause. They walked back down the aisle hand in hand as the sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold. The reception was held in the resort's restaurant, the space Natalie had designed with this exact kind of celebration in mind. String lights twinkled overhead and candles flickered on every table. They danced to jazz music, ate incredible food, and celebrated with the people who mattered most. Late in the evening, Natalie and Jameson slipped away from the party and walked down to the beach. They stood at the water's edge, waves lapping at their feet. "Mrs. Reed," Jameson said, testing out her new name. "I am keeping Brooks professionally," Natalie reminded him. "But I like the sound of Natalie Brooks Reed in my personal life. I like the sound of you being my wife." They kissed. A sweet and lingering kiss that tasted like salt, air, and champagne and promise. "Thank you," Natalie said softly. "For what? For getting locked in that steam room with me? For taking a chance on us? For building this beautiful life together?" Jameson pulled her closer. "That was the best malfunction that ever happened. Though we should probably send a thank you note to whoever installed that faulty lock." "Already done. I had Carmen track down the contractor. Sent him a very nice gift basket." Jameson laughed, the sound full of joy and contentment. "Of course you did. You think of everything." "Not everything. I never planned on falling in love with a client. That was definitely not in my business plan. The best things never are." They stood there together as the party continued behind them, the resort they had created together glowing warmly in the darkness. Natalie thought about how her life had changed, how a single morning could alter everything she had walked into. Azure Bay expecting to showcase her work and meet a business contact. Instead, she had found a partner, a collaborator, and the love of her life. Sometimes the best designs were the ones you never saw coming. 1 year later, full circle Natalie stood in the lobby of the newly opened Sedona Resort, watching guests check in and admiring how perfectly the space had turned out. The building seemed to grow naturally from the red rock landscape, with local stone and timber creating a warm, organic feel. Floor-tisseling windows framed views of the surrounding mountains. And Native American art from local tribes honored the area's heritage. It was the fourth property she had completed for Reed Hospitality Group, and it might be her best work yet. "Penny for your thoughts," Jameson said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "Just thinking about how far we have come. Remember when you first showed me these renderings in your conference room? I remember you looked terrified. I was terrified. Taking that job meant risking everything. Do you regret it?" Natalie turned in his arms to face him. "Not for a single second. This has been the best year and a half of my life." "Mine too," he kissed her forehead. "Though I have to admit, I am getting a little tired of the constant travel. Maybe it is time to slow down, work on fewer projects." Or, Natalie said slowly, "Maybe it is time to work on a different kind of project." Jameson pulled back to look at her, his eyes searching her face. "What kind of project?" Natalie took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "The kind that takes 9 months and results in a very small, very demanding new client." For a moment, Jameson just stared at her. Then understanding dawned and his face transformed with joy. "Really? You are pregnant?" "Really. I found out yesterday. I wanted to tell you here, in this place we created together." Jameson picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing. When he set her down, he was crying happy tears. "We are having a baby. We are having a baby," Natalie confirmed. "Though we might need to convert one of the guest rooms in our house into a nursery. I already have some design ideas, of course you do." Jameson kissed her deeply, pouring all his love and excitement into the gesture. "I love you so much. Both of you," as they stood there in the lobby of the resort they had built together. Natalie felt the same sense of rightness she had felt on their wedding day. This was where she was meant to be. With this man, building this life, creating these spaces and memories, it had all started with a malfunctioning lock on a steam room door. A random accident that had led to everything good in her life. She smiled at the thought. Maybe she should design more steam rooms. They seemed to have a magic all their own. "What are you thinking?" Jameson asked. "That I am the luckiest woman alive." "That is funny. I was just thinking I am the luckiest man." They walked out together into the Sedona sunset, their shadows stretching long across the red earth. Behind them, the resort glowed with warm light, welcoming travelers from around the world to experience the beauty and hospitality they had created together. And somewhere, in a small coastal town, the steam room at Azure Bay Resort sat ready for its next guests. The door had been fixed months ago, the lock working perfectly now, but the magic that had been created there still lingered in the salt-infused air, waiting to work its enchantment on anyone lucky enough to step inside.